speaker is Rob DeVenuto. Did I say your name right?
Yeah, it was really close. So it's all
Okay.
good. I've had every iteration
DeVenuto.
of it. So
Yeah. He's spoken with us before on the dog park and the dog splash event. And tonight he's going to talk about landscapes. And so I'm going to let him introduce himself and tell us a little bit about yourself, Rob.
thank you so much, Anne. And let me go ahead and throw my screen up for you. And then we shall go into presentation mode. And let me switch my screens here so that you can probably see it a little bit better. Um, can you all see the screens okay? The screen okay?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, very nice.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well,
What's that treatment?
it's a sketch. So this is actually one of the pictures I use for like one of my icons for my photography business. And so one thing I realized that I didn't have was a PowerPoint presentation, like template itself. So I put together a template here for this presentation. I was like, yes, now I have it in my pocket. I can
You had an
have a starting
excuse
point
to
again.
do it.
So, but once you upload an image, there's artistic styles that you can do inside PowerPoint, and one of them happens to be like sketch, or there's charcoal. There's a whole host of them. And,
Wow.
so,
Nice.
Yeah. Wow.
but thank you all so much for having me here tonight. I had such a great time, and the last time you offered to have me present, and just a great group of people. I cannot wait to retire so that I can join in on all the fun
Oh, great.
with all the
Yeah, that'd be
events.
great.
I'm down between 18. I'm targeting between 18 and 24 months. So it's
Wow.
I can almost taste it, but I just can't have that short timers motion just yet. Like 'cause it's still a little too far out. And so, but before we dive into tonight's presentation, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a longtime resident here in Sonoma County. I grew up in Petaluma, and when I graduated high school, went off to school in Sacramento. After finishing up school there, I started my career over in the Bay Area, and I worked in a number of different software companies throughout my career. Currently at Salesforce over in San Francisco. Um, in 1999, I had the opportunity to move back to Sonoma County. So we did move to Santa Rosa. And then in 2002, ended up moving up to Windsor, where I was able to bought some property, and that's where ended up raising my two kids itself. And so today, I'm married to my beautiful wife Colleen, and we are empty nesters, which is amazing. My son is local. He's finishing up school over at Sonoma State, and my daughter is spread her wings, and she moved out to Connecticut. And has really been flourishing in her sales career. So after she finished college, but it's I would like to have her a little bit closer. So but that's maybe in a couple of years she'll be ready to move back. So that would be great.
After a couple winters.
Exactly. This was the first winter that she really experienced it, and it was really magical the first snowdrop, and then after that, it's like okay, it starts impacting life. And so, on the side, I'm been a big time promoter of the Sonoma County Parks, and I'm actually on the board for the Parks Foundation that supports the parks as well. Outside of work and family and pets, my two biggest hobbies is it's actually not a hobby, it's now a business, is definitely photography, and secondly is biking or cycling itself. And if I'm not behind my camera, I'm typically on one of my bikes, and I'm either up in Annandale or mountain bike riding somewhere, or road cycling through Sonoma County itself. And or I'll be in my garage on a Peloton, doing a ride if it's raining out. And so,
Wow.
so As you know, there are a tremendous number of genres in photography. Landscapes, I think, is probably one of my favorite ones to do, and I'll explain why in just a bit here. So, there's a lot of different genres about photography, but landscapes are probably one of the most frequent starting points that any photographer starts to dabble into. I mean, besides capturing people, we are filled with nature all around us, and it's very easy to snap some shots of places that mean something to us or that we value. But when we start to peel back that onion, is like, I guess the big question is like, what makes landscape more than just simply scenery? Okay. And that's going to be like the focus of this presentation here tonight. Mm-hmm. So now I would offer that there's quite a number of different things in a landscape photo that you're looking at that moves you or makes you feel a connection to some spot. Often it's telling a story. And that story is going to have something to do with one or more of these attributes that you see over here on the right-hand side. It might be the lighting that's used, whether it's during golden hour or blue hour. It could be leading lines that's directing your eyes to a specific area within the image. It might be color theory, that makes you feel that warmth or that coolness that is inherent within the scenery. Could be dramatic skies or framing that you're doing. But the big part of this is all about composition that of the photo itself. And so, besides these, are there any other attributes that you all think of when you all take a landscape photo?
Catching the moment.
Catching the
Which
moment.
means catching the moment either at low light, golden hour, and maybe something exciting going on in the sky.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Or a reflection that's extraordinary.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Yes.
Depth of field.
Field. Mm-hmm. Yes. This is great. This is great because these are all elements that I think we naturally gravitate to, and there's lots of quote unquote rules that exist, right? But I'm a rule breaker, not a rule follower. And so in a lot of aspects of life, right? But this one in particular, I use those rules as like guideposts instead of strictly following those. So if you trust your instincts more than you trust the rules, I find that I've come out with much, much better photos in the coming out of the picture. So for tonight, I did put together an agenda, for what we'll walk through here. I'll start off here with my landscape philosophy, why this is one of my favorite genres and what it does for me personally. And hopefully that you can share in some of the same type of attributes that I get into. Then we'll dive into the foundations of what really makes landscape photography. I'll follow that up with creative approaches. And this is kind of in lieu of like a case study. I've got a number of images that I've taken, and I'll walk through each of the different approaches and what was going through my mind at the time of taking these pictures itself. And then we'll get into a single image, and I'll walk you through my post-processing workflow of how I go from imaging camera to something that I will post online, share, put on my website for sale, et cetera, itself. But very rarely do we ever have a picture that comes straight out of the camera that is, perfect enough to warrant a sale out of it itself. And so occasionally it happens, but very not often. And then we'll wrap up with some helpful tips, and you'll have all my contact info and Q&A. But of course, let's make this interactive. So if there's any questions that come out, please just ask, and we can address those then there. Okay. So with that said, there's really kind of three different areas of landscape photography that really speak to me. And I've got them listed here. Number one, it helps me be active. it's really, really hard to shoot a landscape photo from one location. I mean, maybe if you're sitting on top of a vista spot overlooking a beautiful scene, that might be the exception here. But most of the time, when you're out and about, it's going to require you to be active in order to get the shot. You might be hiking or walking somewhere to be able to find that key spot that you're looking for. And quite honestly, when you add in all the gear that you're bringing with you, when you factor in the additional lenses, maybe a tripod, all of your filters, et cetera, it starts to act like a weighted vest. And so you're getting some really good exercise as well while you're out there shooting. Mental health, it's a proven fact. Being out in nature helps you with your state of mind. It helps reduce stress, it lowers cortisol levels, and landscape photography puts me right out in nature and breathing in all the fresh air, seeing all these new sights, and depending where you're hiking, you've got to be present and keeping an eye out for any critters that might be lurking, somewhere, right? And so you're being present and you are in the moment itself. And I think exploration is another really key area. I love exploring new spots, and landscape photography is just that. I mean, I can't take the same, well, I do sometimes, but it gets old when you start taking the same photo over and over again. Like, for instance, I love Goat Rock, and it's one of my favorite beaches along the coastline. I don't think there is any additional shots that I can possibly get out of Goat Rock that I haven't already taken 500 times. But nevertheless, I continue to bring my camera out there. But maybe that's the definition of crazy, is doing the same thing over and over again, right? Expecting different results. But landscape photography, it really forces me to look for new spots to go shoot it. I call this being a local tourist. And if I don't have a spot in mind, I'll pick one and pretend that I have never been there before. Pretend like everything's new. What would I capture in this particular area? I find myself getting a deeper connection to whatever area that I'm in, and looking at things a little bit differently than what I otherwise would have if I was just driving through the area and just admiring the scenery itself. And quite honestly, I'm a big believer in sharing. I mean, I don't own any of these sites that I go shoot at itself. I know there's different philosophies for different photographers and whatnot, but I actually kind of get excited if I post a picture and someone gets excited about that spot or loves that and they go visit it and they take shots of their own in there. I mean, I think that's amazing. I mean, it's what we're all here for, is to share. So this is my philosophy and why landscapes are one of the key areas, the key genres for me to go shoot at. So now I'd like to drop into the foundations, set the stage for, what really makes up, landscape photography. And, here I'm going to focus on essentially 4 different areas, or 3 areas: light, primarily, gear and settings, and then composition itself. So with that said, let's dig into light. Photography, stripping everything back, is essentially the study of light. Okay. And this is why I love astrophotography, but I find it the most frustrating because you don't have any light to work with and whatnot, especially, trying to see your camera dials and settings on the camera and whatnot.
But actually you do have old light. Think about that.
Yeah, yes.
Very old light.
This is true. Very old light. Yes. I do love it, but I'm also a morning person. So being up that late at night right now is really difficult for me itself. So one of these days I will get out to shoot the Aurora Borealis, but I think I need like a week off prior to, and in order to get rested enough for it and whatnot. So, but we have different light throughout the day. And light has the biggest impact on landscape shots itself. For instance, we have roughly 3 hours a day of the most amazing light where the sun is closer to the horizon, which creates some magical moments in landscape photography. The two of the most important ones that you'll see on here are the dawn, the blue hour, and the golden hours that exist. And we have both of those on inverse sides at sunrise as well as sunset itself. And at any time, the golden hour can last between 30 and 60 minutes. It generally provides those warm, intimate tones within the images itself. Where the blue hour, it provides this cool kind of mysterious atmosphere that you find in a lot of images that have that blue kind of tint. And you'll see some here as well. Now, those are two parts of the day that we can go out and shoot itself. But the vast majority of the amount of light during the day is during daytime, when the sun is traditionally high above us itself. And it's not always the best time to go shooting. Okay. However, I have found that there are certain things that I can do during the daylight hours and outside of blue and golden hours that can help enhance some landscape photos. Number one, polarizing filters, on your lenses. Those are going to reduce the reflections. They'll enhance some of the colors that exist, and it will help improve the contrast. The other thing that I use is an ND filter during the day. Besides, we'll get into long exposures as far as part of landscapes, but an ND filter is also cutting down the light. And if you've got a variable ND filter where you can adjust it a little bit, depending upon how much light it is and how bright it is outside, you can really make an impact on that photo, even without having to use a tripod with it. So I oftentimes will be carrying my camera with an ND filter available to pop on and not.
Mhm.
The other thing too, I honestly have not done this terribly much, but it is something that I'm looking to play around with a little bit more, but is bracketing, during the daylight hours, so that you start capturing, the essentially the same image, but at different exposures, and then merging those together to create. So I just, in order to do that though, for true bracketing, you have got to have a tripod and use a tripod. Because if not, your photos are going to be different setups and so forth. So now, when we take a look at gear and settings, like you don't need the most expensive gear, but the right tools do help with regards to landscapes. For instance, wide angle lenses are going to open up space. Tripods, that's going to help stabilize for long exposures. Filters, control the reflections and the light, like we just talked about. I also have found that apertures between f11 and f16 tend to be that sweet spot for depth of field itself. Now, when I start thinking about the gear that I'm bringing out with me, it kind of depends on where I'm going and how long I'm going to be out there for. But you can see here, obviously my two favorite lenses that I bring is a 24 to 70 and a 70 to 200. Those two typically handle the vast gamut of shots that I want to take when I'm out. But if I'm in a wide open spot, or if you're thinking about doing astrophotography, you need typically a wider lens as well. So, up to like a 12 to 14 millimeter, it would be ideal for those kind of settings. As I mentioned, the filters, ND as well as polarizing filters available. I also bring a shutter release with me. If I'm going to bring my tripod, might as well bring a shutter release because otherwise you might get some jitter when you hit the shutter button on your camera. And then, besides extra cards and batteries, I mean, that's kind of standard we all want to bring there. I also keep in my camera bag, a towel, a lens cloth, and a blower, itself, just in case, depending on where you are in the elements. A towel comes in handy a lot of times to wipe down your gear and make sure that you don't get any especially in the winter months, you don't get any moisture inside. Beyond that, hat, jacket, sunscreen, because especially if you're out in the elements, I may also consider a field kit, where I always have a flashlight in my bag with me. I typically have my phone, so I've got a map and GPS available. If I'm out for an extended period of time, I'll bring a power bank to make sure that none of my stuff dies on me itself. And then, I'll typically throw in a couple of first aid, items like Band-Aids or something, just in case I cut myself out there. The one thing I have been thinking about lately, as well as with, especially in springtime with the higher grass that's coming about, is starting to think about like venom kits. There's a lot of rattlesnakes in some of the parks around us. So, what happens if I got bit by a rattlesnake? So I don't know. This has been something that's been popping in my head over the last few weeks as I've been out traversing. And then, of course, snacks, water. And then I also keep a notepad with me to be able to log some notes. Some people might do this on their phone. That's totally cool too. But also consider if you have a photography business, keep some business cards inside your bag with you. I can't tell you how many people I've met out on the trail that I've struck up conversations with, and they're enamored by what I'm looking at or what shots that I'm trying to take, and so forth. And they may not be photographers at all. They just might be interested. And I was like, hey, these are going to be. I'll post these on my website, and you can take a look, and it just gives you a little bit more exposure, and so forth. So it's. In terms of your camera, in the settings that exist, I shoot RAW. I never shoot JPEG anymore whatsoever. The RAW just gives you a wealth of flexibility. It's definitely bigger file sizes, and you definitely have to post-process a RAW image, but you will have so much more ability to process that image with a RAW than you would ever with a JPEG. I'll traditionally shoot either on aperture or manual modes itself. Occasionally, I'll switch over to shutter if I'm out there and maybe a bird is flying through. If you're stuck in aperture mode, you're not going to get a crisp bird flying by, or a butterfly, or even a hummingbird for that matter itself. So, but primarily I'm on aperture or manual mode. I do try to keep my ISO very, very low. Whenever I get out somewhere, I'll take some practice shots, and I'll be looking at the histogram on the camera to make sure that I'm not, blowing something out or underexposing something drastically itself. And the low ISO also kind of helps prevent from any type of noise that is going to come out. I mean, cameras have gotten so much better over the last decade or so. Noise isn't as big of a deal. And now with a lot of our programs that we're using for post-processing, we can pull that noise out very easily, more so than what we could, just 15 years ago. But I still try to keep that ISO low. The least time I have to spend post-processing, the better off I feel, and the more time I can spend outside shooting itself. I don't really care about my white balance per se, because I'm shooting RAW. White balance doesn't really have an effect when you shoot RAW, because you can change this post-processing very, very easily itself. And then, of course, you probably already know about image stabilization. That you typically are going to turn that off if you're on a tripod. You don't need that on there. It'll create a faster shutter as well. And then my focus method is definitely single point when I'm out there for landscapes. And then just depending on how much light is during the day, and if I had forgotten my ND filter, I will also start playing with exposure compensation. And typically I'll drop it by one full stop to 2 to 3 full stops, just depending on how much light is out there. And again, that's typically if I'm shooting during the daylight hours, not during blue or golden hours itself. Before I move on, any questions on that?
I just have a question about image stabilization.
Sure.
I know you're supposed to turn it off when you have your camera on a tripod, but I don't really know what it is. I mean, what does it do?
So on various lenses, as you're holding the lens and that, and when you're pressing the shutter button, you can get a little bit of shake within the camera itself, and you'll end up with the blurry picture without image stabilization turned on.
Okay.
With image stabilization turned on, it will keep that image crisp, and it reduces any of that movement that occurs as you're taking that image itself.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
How much of this do you carry on your bicycle?
Funny you say that, because I have been dying to try to combine these two, because especially when I go mountain biking, I'm in places where a lot of people have never set foot, right? And there's some beautiful locations out there. So I just bought or I didn't buy it, I got it for my birthday, but it was a clip that I can attach to a backpack, and then I can drop my camera right on that clip. So as I'm riding, I can easily pull off and just pull my camera, take the shot, get back on the bike, and go. And because previous to this, it was just awkward. I'd have to pull off, take the backpack off, pull out the camera, take the shot, put everything back away, and it was just too time consuming and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I'm just starting to combine these two together. So.
It's awesome.
Now, with composition, this is primarily how we're guiding that viewer's eyes. When we do this through a number of different things through composition, this could be leading lines. It could be the foreground interest that is inside a photo. It could be balance, within the photo itself. The composition really is what helps us move beyond simply snapshots into intentional storytelling. And there are so many rules around composition, but please, please, please don't get hung up on them itself. Know them, use them as guiding posts, but really trust your gut. You instinctively know what feels right and what intentionally feels wrong in an image. Lean into those feelings and use those rules as those guideposts itself. So one of the ways that I look, and you'll see this in parts of the presentation as well, is the way that I look and frame up an image in my mind is I think of it in terms of, if a picture is supposed to be a story, okay, then every story tends to have three different aspects. It has a hero, it has supporting characters, and it has villains. Okay, this is the Marvel kind of approach to every one of their movies. Okay, is these three elements, and I've really gravitated to it because it helps with photography too. Okay, the hero you want to completely frame out inside the image itself. That's your focal point. Okay, the supporting characters are helping drive that hero. It could be the leading lines to that portion, or it could be a frame around the image itself. And the villains are things that you want to remove. Okay, so this might be a weed, that is inside that you can't get out of the picture, or it might be that person that walks into your frame, when you have that perfect shot lined up, right? And, or it could be this tree that has is just deteriorating and it is not adding anything to the story itself. But these are the villains, and the villains will change depending on what your landscape is. But those are the ones that we really want to remove, and we'll walk you through some of this itself. In terms of composition, there's a number of things that I'll focus on here. One is a really strong focal point, and that is that's what originally caught your eye in the first place. When you're walking through an area, and you have that moment where you stop, you take a look, and you might bring the camera up to your eye, or you might just simply kind of frame it with your hands. That's your focal point. Okay, it could be a tree, rock, patch of light, or something. Okay, balance. Is the rule of thirds, and I know it's a rule, right? But I still use this to break it itself. Is that when you think of those grid lines, whether it's if you're seeing them on your camera or you're seeing them in post processing, the goal is not just the intersection points, but anywhere along those guidelines is where you want to have something positioned inside the photo. And that it'll feel more natural and it'll feel more balanced inside the image once it's completed. I love leading lines. I go out and shoot with a bunch of friends, and they know, for instance, hey, Rob, there's a path over there. You want to go shoot that? Sure, actually I do. So there's something about paths that really strike my fancy, and I use them as leading lines within the image itself. Symmetry is another big thing for me, even outside of photography. I love symmetry, and reflections are a great way to be able to mimic a symmetry itself. And I'll show you some examples of that. We talked a little bit about framing, and when we're talking about framing, this could be anything within the picture. It could be, tree branches. It could be a fence line. It could be a bridge, that's directing your eye, but it's framing the image, and it doesn't have to go all the way around the image. It could just be a portion of the image. And again, I'll show you a couple examples of this. One of my biggest pet peeves, and once I learned this, it drives me nuts whenever I see an image without a straight horizon inside there. Somebody will take a snapshot of a picture, and the sea is sitting, off to the side or something, and it just feels so wrong to me and whatnot. And of course, rules are meant to be broken. So if you're doing that intentionally, that's a whole different story, itself. But for the most part, for landscapes, the horizon has got to be level, and it needs to be fixed itself. Nothing will take an amazing photo down a couple levels when it doesn't have a straight horizon. And then, as I mentioned, simplify the scene. Is take those villains out of the scene itself. Now, I'm going to walk you through some of these creative approaches within taking some landscapes. And these will be a series of images that I've taken, and I'll walk you through, what I use, what I look for. I want to dig in and kind of, give you a peek what's going on inside my head with a few of these landscape shots. Please, please, please don't hesitate to ask questions. This is a great time to share each other's experiences and help learn from each other as well. So, now, with that said, the first one here, one of the best supporting characters that you can find in a landscape is dramatic weather. And dramatic weather is traditionally before or after a storm is going to take place. You're going to have the best clouds in the sky itself that have definition associated with them. And I have a few shots here that I'm going to walk you through that if it wasn't for the weather in them, I'm not so sure these shots would have resonated as much to me itself. This one here, this was shot in the mid-afternoon in Connecticut. The clouds really helped me balance the shot relative to the red building within the image itself. And of course, the lighthouse, that's the center of attention here. But I used the weeds and the cattails down in the bottom left-hand corner in the foreground to help with that balance itself. And one of the couple of the things that really stood out for me in this particular shot were obviously the skies and the clouds, but that foreground, the stark colors between the reds and the blues and the greens, and then the balance that exists between those.
Yeah, the balance with the clouds and the red building is neat.
Thank you.
At each other.
And you can always, if a color is not as impactful, I don't want to steal Sherry's thunder from next month, but if a color is not impactful enough for you, use those color sliders within Lightroom or Photoshop and or whatever tool you're using, and you can bump it up a little bit just to have that impact. Another approach, this was actually an unexpected shot. I was hiking up in Annandale a couple of years ago in the early morning hours, and there was still some fog in the air where the light was filtering through. I saw this fallen tree that was I absolutely love the colors at the time.
Mm-hmm.
The greens and the reds that were popping there. This starts to get into color theory, and it's something that I've really just started to dabble in recently. Is to understand the color wheel and how that color wheel impacts the photos during post processing. But when I saw the tree, saw the colors, I loved it, took the shot. But it wasn't until I got back and I started processing it that I really started to pull the colors out, and I cropped it into the frame so that the tree branch was that hero of the shot itself. And
I have a question. When you edited the shot, did you play with the texture in Lightroom?
I did.
I would like to know what you did.
Absolutely, absolutely. Actually, I have another image that I take you directly through from straight out of the camera all the way to the final result, to the final image, and
Right.
I'll walk you through because it's very similar in all my shots, like what I look for and what I do in post processing.
Awesome. Thank you.
So.
What I like about this one is, first, it looks like the tree is crawling across the road. Then in the background, these little red, I don't know if they're leaves or flowers, but they're just so soft and beautiful. It's really very nice.
Thank you very much.
Lighting. It's great.
Yeah.
It was one of those those magical moments that that you can't ever plan for. As much planning as you try to do in photography, I think some of my favorite shots are always those spontaneous ones that you end up getting and not realizing until you get back to your computer and start working with the image itself. This was another foggy morning. This was one of the mornings where I just needed to get out of the house. I needed to go for a walk, a hike, and so forth. And I live right next to the foothills here in Windsor. And so I wasn't initially planning on taking my camera with me that morning, but I sure am glad I did, because I got out there and it wasn't as foggy or white out as I thought it was going to be. And when I came across this scene, you had this landmass with the reeds and that was jutting out into this pond, and with the reflection into the water. And I don't know if you can see them, but in the upper left hand corner there's a couple pair of ducks that were sitting out there. And it just spoke to me, and I was like, wow, this is and I got a whole series of these images that day itself. But that light mist, fog are two key elements that I really, really love. And I love it so much that I actually went out and bought a portable fog machine, smoke machine.
Nice.
And so that way, if I'm out at Armstrong, and sometimes the clover down below, or, if there's the right log
Really?
sitting there, I'll shoot a little smoke over it and then take a shot and whatnot. It's just a little fun and whatnot.
Fun,
You got to be
fun.
careful because people see the smoke and they think that you're lighting a fire or something.
Oh.
But that's okay. You get to meet a new friend that way. And so, when we take a look at leading lines, I told you I love paths. These next couple of shots, I'm going to walk you through the leading lines, which really create a sense of movement in a stationary image. And beyond that, it helps direct the viewer's eyes to throughout the image and where you want them to go. This shot here, it was taken in one of the state parks in Lake Tahoe. And I loved that pier with the attached shed. And I shot it from a number of different angles, and I suggest you do too. Whenever you're out and you see that scene that you want to take a shot, move around it, take it from different angles, because that first shot that you take may not be the best one when you get back home. And that way you have a bunch of shots that you can work with itself. Personally, I really liked how the side angle worked, and it helped balance out the shed. And actually, it made me wonder what was inside. And, this is where that rule breaker kind of attitude comes into play, because I really, really, really wanted to go out there and find out what was in the shed, but my wife talked me out of it. And so I was like, so she's normally that good angel sitting on my shoulder telling me not to do something. But here, this one, the snow-capped mountains. This was definitely during blue hour, when I got the shot in the afternoon. The side angle of the pier, the leading lines, these were all things that really spoke to me when I saw that scene. I was like, oh, I really need to get this. Looking at this image now, if I was going to re-edit this again, that rock on the side on the right, I left that in here on purpose because I wanted to call it out, because that is a villain to me. Okay, that is not adding anything to my image, and I would like to get rid of that. So,
I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah. Trisha's always monitoring us.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You go through and you make your edits one time, and then, you go back through your images like a couple of years later, and you're going to see things completely different. And, I love the non-destructive edits that Lightroom does, because I can just make a virtual copy, keep my original that I did, and, redo a new edit style if I want to, and whatnot. So, this was shot along 128 in Geyserville. I was out playing local tourist, and I was driving around Geyserville, and I came around the corner where the blossoming trees that were sitting out here with the barn in the distance. You've got that iconic California 128 road sign, the vineyards over on the right-hand side, these textured clouds up above. It just stopped me in my tracks. And, and I knew that I needed to get the shot itself. So while it's not a heavily trafficked road, I ended up pulling over right at the time when there was like a whole slew of traffic coming through. So I ended up having to wait like 10 minutes to actually get the shot, but I was so glad I did, because I still to this day, I love the colors in this shot, and the angling of the shot itself.
I like how the shadow of the trees kind of paces you down the road a little bit.
Ooh, you know what? I had not. Yes, as you say that, yes, I love that too. Another aspect of landscapes is long exposures, right? It's actually, I would say that this is one of the trademark approaches within landscapes. I'll be honest, I was stuck in thinking about long exposures simply around water, until a good friend of mine, he took a shot, a long exposure shot of a tree that was blowing in the wind. And it was one of those aha moments for me. It was like, long exposures, water, that's all it is just movement. So anything that moves could be subject to a long exposure. And that kind of unlocked that thought that I don't necessarily need to just be shooting water for long exposures itself. But, anything that moves is awesome for long exposures. I love this because, it was at sunset, and the lighting inside here. And, as I learn more and more about color theory itself, I am now convinced that the reason why sunset colors are so amazing to everybody is because of the oranges and blues. And those are completely opposite each other on the color wheel. They're complementary colors that fit so nicely together. The same thing with Christmas and our red and greens, right? And they're opposite on the color wheel. So anything that, around that is going to have a really strong impact within there. I also kind of like the balance in the foreground to background interest within this image. Reflections. I love symmetry. It's something that really gets me excited when I see it hit within a site. And reflections do make some of the best mirrored images itself. There are times where I will take a shot like this, And even without any edits whatsoever, I'll just completely flip the image upside down and and then crop it so that you really don't see the like in this case here, the buildings, the real buildings, and it makes the ultimate watercolor. I mean, it's like the original watercolor kind of image itself. And so it's kind of a little bit magical, you know, if you want something a little bit different. This shot, if you couldn't tell, it was taken during blue hour in Austin, Texas. And what caught my eye, I was walking along this path and I loved the skyline and how it was reflecting across the fairly smooth water that you see there. And then I started moving around, playing with some of the angles where, you know, I used the bridge as a leading line to direct the viewer's eyes to that skyline itself. And it just kind of worked for me inside the image itself. And so a lot of, you know, keep an eye out because for those types of items inside there. You know, calm water is definitely best. You know, if it's rushing, you're not going to be able to get a really good reflection out of it itself, but it can still be done. And you know, obviously, I like the skyline depth inside the image here. The leading lines, that mirrored image, and you know, blue hour is just a lot of fun to shoot at within the. This is a you know, if I'm not, you know, if I mentioned before, if I'm not behind my camera, I'm probably going to be on my bike. And one of my favorite spots to go mountain biking at is up in Annandale. And I'll oftentimes be going around Lake Osanjo, you know, getting up there itself. This day, I was actually riding across the dam, and oftentimes as I'm doing that, I'm looking out towards Lake Osanjo, and I always find this area really, really beautiful. But this day in particular, all of the cumulus clouds that were sitting there, the lake was completely still. There wasn't any movement whatsoever, and those clouds were just reflecting. I had rode past across the entire dam, and then it was one of those moments like, Rob, what are you doing? Go back. And so I whipped back around, and this was a shot that I actually took with my iPhone because it was just so. And I, by the way, on if you've got a pro iPhone, you can shoot RAW on your phone as well. And so, so I do shoot RAW on my phone as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, but again, I just love the reflections and the symmetry that you find within the reflection. When we talk about golden hour, you know, we've seen a million photos. I'm sure everybody's taken a million photos during golden hour itself. You know, this was one up in the Foothills Regional Park, and this is probably one of the most intentional times to go shooting for landscapes, as well as if you're into portrait photography as well. Great time to get portrait shots of individuals. The only downside to golden hour is that it just doesn't last long enough. You know, we might have 30 to 60 minutes, but man, oh man, I could easily have 2 to 3 hours at a time just with golden hour and all the shots and stuff. The thing I wanted to call out about this one is that using a smaller aperture, you know, you can really pull out those sun rays. And this one, I think I dialed it actually down to f/22. I was playing around at that level to get really stark kind of sun rays out of the image. But oftentimes, you know, it'll be, you know, it won't be as small as that inside there. But the apertures and, you know, having those smaller apertures, it's great if with the sunsets. It's also great when you have light filtering through trees. So if you're inside a forest like Armstrong or Monorio Redwoods or something to that effect, and you've got that light coming through, you'll be able to catch some of those sun rays as well. Or often if you got mist or fog and sun, like holy cow, you've got the holy trinity right there, you know, in terms of the setup for the image itself. Framing is another really strong technique to help tell the story or direct the viewer's eyes. And I think I mentioned earlier, but the frames don't need to be around the entire image. It's actually better if they're not, because it lets the viewer fill in the rest of that image. It's kind of like when you take a shot and part of the image, like let's say you're shooting a barn, okay? Instead of having that entire barn in the center of focus, it's like cut off and only half of it's showing. It adds interest to the viewer, and they fill in the rest with that. And so that's kind of how framing fills in too. This shot was taken in late afternoon, not quite golden hour, but the light was really low at Spring Lake. And Spring Lake is one of the most amazing spots to go shoot landscape photos, especially around golden hour. If you just walk around the swimming lagoon itself, there is a plethora of different locations that will immediately catch your eye, from redwood trees to these wispy little trees with dainty leaves, over the Lake Ralphine, the reeds that are popping up itself. But at any rate, the light filtering is what actually caught my eye in this image first. And then I had to kind of start angling myself and moving around to be able to get that right composition or that right spot for the image. And what I ended up landing on was having with those rocks in the foreground. Oftentimes in a landscape photo, you definitely need to be considering not only the entirety of the photo, but thinking about the background to the foreground and what's in between, in all three levels within the image itself. By having that level of depth in a photo, it actually makes a 2D image start to feel more like a 3D spot. And in this one here, I feel like I could almost walk out into the water, if I could walk into an image itself.
Lovely.
Thank you. This is another framed out shot, this time up in the foothills with a vista view overlooking Windsor. I really love benches in shots. They'll either be like a hero or they'll be a supporting character in generally my story that I'm trying to tell. And I don't know, I can always feel myself like just sitting there and taking in the sights from whatever bench that I've shot itself. Fortunately, in all of our regional parks in Sonoma County, we have benches everywhere because they're a sponsored item that people can sponsor a bench and have a plaque put on it and so forth. So they're all over the parks. Helen Putnam in Petaluma has some amazing spots for benches. Sonoma Valley also has some amazing. Taylor Mountain, Spring Lake, Foothill, like you name it, you're going to find a bench. So if these resonate with you, you by far you'll find them in a number of different spots itself. Now, the last kind of approach that I'll take you through for landscapes is to think about perspectives. If you can shoot from different angles. The same shot. Crouch down, shoot upwards. This shot here is from over at Stillwater Cove up in northern Jenner. And I wanted to get as many of the redwood trees in this picture as I could. But I also like the ferns that were sitting in the foreground. So I crouched down real low and I shot upwards. And when you do that and you're shooting upwards, I mean, we're all told you never want to do this with people, right? Like you don't want to shoot upwards at individuals because it makes them look funny. But that doesn't make like nature look funny when you shoot upwards. It actually creates this larger than life feel and it makes them feel more heroic, inside the image itself. I'm sorry, was there a question or a comment?
Yes, I have a question. What settings did you use when you shot this? What aperture did you use?
That is a good question. Teresa, I'm going to have to look that up because I don't know off the top of my head what I actually shot on here. if we have time later at the end, I'll open up Photoshop or I'll open up Lightroom and I'll go find this image and I'll let you know for sure exactly what I used on it.
Thank you.
The other thing that I really liked in this one was all of the texture on the trees themselves. It really kind of, I don't know, the coloring and the contrast with the greens. I love redwoods. Like those are, I didn't know how much I loved redwoods until like a few years ago, and I started looking through a lot of my images, and I have a lot of redwoods in my pictures. I was like, huh, I think I really love these trees and whatnot. And so, sure enough, but this is really good. And likewise, the contrary is, if you're up on a bluff, shoot downwards. Shooting downwards creates a sense of scale within the image. And, what really caught my eye in the shot was the S curve that you're seeing between the sand and the water itself within the image and in that flow. It also, told a story about a day in the beach, and this was down in SoCal itself. And probably would never guess by how people are looking and playing here. Maybe by the sheer number of people you could tell. But this was in the middle of winter. Okay, so I mean, their beaches are drastically different than ours, right? And so forth. So, but it does create that sense of scale that exists. So now I'd like to take you through, my post-processing workflow, and what I do, what I look for, and essentially pulling that image out of the raw itself. As I mentioned before, hardly ever will we get a shot that comes straight out of your camera perfectly. A great photograph is not only defined by the time of the shot was taken, but also how you decide to process that image. I mentioned before, I only shoot in RAW because I want full control over how that image is going to turn out. And while shooting JPEG can utilize some decent built-in presets within the camera, it will never provide that depth of control that you need to turn a good picture into a great picture. And this section here, I'm going to walk you through the initial shot and what I would do to turn this into something that I would share or sell within there. So with further ado, we'll take a look at this final image here. Okay, this too was taken along the back roads within Geyserville, and I told you before I love leading lines, right? So this S curve that I saw on the road was like, whoa, that was the first thing that caught my eye. And then when you factored in the barns, the vineyards, the mature trees, this was all like way too much. I was like, okay, I got to get the shot here, but it really didn't start off this way. So let me show you what it actually started out looking like, and then where I got it to. Okay, so here was the original image in the upper left here. Coupled with street signs, it had more road in the image than what I needed. The guardrails that existed, the drab kind of coloring that came out itself. This is what I had to start with in terms of the storytelling and to get to. So, next set of slides, I'm going to walk you through the process. So when I start thinking about that storytelling, again, I start thinking about, what is the hero in my image? What are the supporting characters that I want to accentuate? And who are those villains that I want to get rid of inside the image itself? All the stuff that you see marked up in red, okay, those are what I viewed as the villains in the image, and I needed to remove them. And one of my favorite tools that has just come out in Lightroom is the AI remove feature, okay, that they just added. It does an amazing job of removing items that you don't want or take away, or it takes away from the image itself. Okay. Now, I know there is like this semi-religious debate on AI, right? Okay. And I don't particularly care for AI generated images. Okay. Just my personal, that's why I have a camera itself, right? Okay. But the question I ask myself, as far as I think AI is another tool that we have in our tool belt, is what are we looking to achieve with whatever image that we're looking to put out there? Okay, is it an image where I'm simply documenting something or documenting a view or a place? Okay, if that's the instance, then chances are I'm not going to use AI at all, because I want it to be as representative as that spot as I can. However, if I'm looking to create a picture that I'm going to hang on a wall or I'm going to make a sale from, okay, then I don't really need the street sign, the speed limit, the guardrails inside this image, and I'm okay with removing those from.
Bad guys.
Mhm.
I'm sorry.
I said that's a lot of bad guys.
I know it was. It was like, man, there's going to be a lot of work that's
Sorry.
going to be involved to get this to where I want it to be. And so, but one technique, even before using AI remove, is just to simply use your crop tool. You can get rid of a bunch of villains just simply by cropping down. Use that rule of thirds to assist on the composition and alignment within the image. The whole goal that you're looking for here is balance within the image, and you'll feel it. I guarantee you, as you start updating and moving your crop marks within the image itself, and then you take a look at it. I can't tell you how many times I've cropped an image where I thought it was where I wanted it to be, and I looked at it and was like, ooh, it doesn't make me feel good. There's something off here, and whatnot. So I'll go back and I'll readjust it until I get it, to where I feel like it's right itself. But the whole goal is your balance. So use those grid lines, and always make sure that horizon is level, unless you're intentionally, doing that on purpose itself. Okay. Now, once I have the image composition set, then I'll start fine tuning the image. Okay. And I have a number of presets that I have built over the years, and I start with those. Personally, I toggle back and forth between a kind of a dreamy kind of landscape look and ones that have more of a cinematic kind of depth to them. It just depends on what kind of story that I'm looking to tell. And each one of the presets that I use will have that same common kind of edit style itself, and that's really what I've leaned into for my style with landscapes as well. And so, Teresa, you asked before, what do I do inside the images, when I go into processing, over on the left-hand side, these are my absolute common edits that I go through, as I adjust the exposure, either up or down, just depending upon, the image itself. I will oftentimes increase the contrast on the image. Sometimes it's best to increase contrast before the exposure. If not, you're going to go back and adjust the exposure again within the image. I'll decrease the highlights, increase the shadows, decrease whites, increase blacks, decrease texture, decrease clarity. And none of these are drastic, especially with the texture and clarity. I like a little softness to the image itself. And it's if I dig in deep and try to self-analyze myself, I think it's because that I feel like there's a lot of hardness in the world, and I want my images coming out a little bit softer, so that it provides a little bit of a lighter touch to the viewer when they're looking at it. I'll also do occasionally some slight vignetting, and I won't typically use the vignetting tool within like Lightroom, for instance, itself. Instead, I'll use masks, and I'll show you that in just a minute. So, and then adjusting the hue, saturation, and luminance for any specific colors that I want to pop out, like that tree that was laying on its side over in Annandale. And I used some adjustments for the reds to pop them a little bit further than what they were itself. Now, once I have those edits done, that's when I flip over to masks. And I'll use the masks to help accentuate the image itself. And primarily, I'm using it for my skies or specific subjects within the image. or as I mentioned before, I'll use a mask to create like a slight vignette from one direction or but within the sky edits itself, here again, I'm oftentimes kind of decreasing the exposure, I'm increasing the contrast, and that's to help build that definition within the sky. If you get let me take it one step back, because this does not work if you're dealing with a pure blue sky. You need to have some type of subject in the sky, clouds and whatnot, for this to work itself. So I'll significantly decrease the highlights, I'll increase the shadows, and slight decrease the clarity on the sky itself, and that will help pop it a little bit. I don't want, unless I'm really focusing in on the sky and that's the hero. Oftentimes the sky is a supporting character in the story in an image, and but if it's I'll increase these values or decrease these values a little bit more if the sky is supposed to be the hero of the image, or one of the heroes of the image itself. Likewise, I'll also use linear gradient or radial masks within the image. I'll using them individually or even together can create different moods within an image itself. One aspect of a linear gradient is to use them for that fine-tuning vignetting that you can do. For instance, draw a linear gradient up from a corner at a diagonal, and it can help direct your viewer's eyes to a specific area of the image itself, just by going from the darkness to that gradient to light. It really makes an impact for the image. And now you can, when you see the final image, you can now start to see like the masks that were used, the crops, the villains that were removed from the image, and some of the presets that existed to be able to put that out there. But that's what's commonly going through my head as I'm going through processing a landscape photo, or any photo for that matter. Before I move on, any questions on that, or any?
I
Yes,
had
Liz.
one on the texture. Where do you get that? I mean, is that a slider on Lightroom?
It is. Yeah, it's right next to the clarity slider. There's a clarity, texture, and dehaze that are all in the same spot. And so the dehazing I'll use occasionally if I wanted to. It's a foggy day and I want to reduce some of that haze in the image. But oftentimes, if I'm shooting in the fog, that's what I want to capture is the fog itself, right? So.
Thanks.
How do you work with power lines to get rid of your power lines and things like that?
Ooh, that is amazing AI remove. Like, I used to have to bring the photos into Photoshop and then remove them, and that is a royal pain and time consuming. With the new AI remove feature, like, you just simply drag across that power line itself and make sure that you cover, extend beyond that power line just a little bit, and it will completely remove that power line, and like it was never there. And
okay.
And it fills in whatever was, interrupting the power line.
That's exactly right, Trisha.
Yeah.
Yes.
I haven't had good luck with that for some reason.
Gosh.
Something I'm doing wrong.
Well, okay. So if by chance I ran into this before too, is that if you've done, like, let's say a sky mask, on the image, and you've made some adjustments to it, and then you do the AI remove, okay, it will create this like highlighted area in your image, and it looks really, really bad and whatnot. There is Lightroom now has a feature where you can re-update the masks, and if you do that, it will blend it seamlessly, and it will take out
re-update the mask. Oh,
yeah. There's you'll see this little icon over on the right when you're in the develop module. Up at the top there, it'll turn yellow, and that's an indication that you need to update your masks because you did something in your edits that impacted the masks that were already done previously.
Oh. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. And so in this last section here, we'll get through pretty fast itself. This is just a collection of helpful tips that I thought might be worthwhile. Things that I've learned on the side, or that hit my head up against a brick wall enough times that it finally got through, kind of thing. And so, but first, I feels like I'd be a bad person if I didn't say one should plan. Okay. Itself, but yes, but also don't forget to be spontaneous, right? Okay. Personally, I told you before, some of my favorite shots are those that were the unexpected ones that come out. But if you do need to plan, here's a few tools that you can use to help with those plannings. For instance, one of my absolute favorites is Astro. Butcher its name. I don't know why I have a hard time saying it. SRPS. It's the icon in the middle here itself. This is a app that you can run on your phone. It's also a website that you can access. It's free to use. And what I love so much about this is that it will plug in a location, and it will give you what the weather is going to be like over there, including cloud cover and visibility at the location itself. So, we all are pretty much in Sonoma County, I believe, right? Itself. How many times have you gone out to the coast only to be disappointed because it completely wiped out, out there? Okay. This is that tool that I use before I even consider going out to the beach. Is I look at it to make sure that that I've got the conditions that I'm looking for, and it will also tell you the wind as well. So sometimes it's not so much fun. I'm sorry.
Can you spell it or say it real slowly?
Yes, SRPS. So it's ASTROSPERIC.
Oh.
One word?
Yes, one
Isn't
word.
there an H between the P and the E?
No, I don't
No
believe.
H?
There might be, but I don't believe so.
I think there is, actually. I just looked it up.
Oh, you did?
There's
Okay,
an
okay.
H. So SPHERIC would be the ending spelling.
Perfect. Thank you. I have the web address for it in the next slide, in a slide coming up here that you can get access to it as well. But or you can look it up in the App Store or Google Play itself. The other oftentimes things that you want to plan out is like, when is golden hour at a particular location? Which direction is the sun going to be setting at? Which direction is the moon going to be rising, et cetera, et cetera. Photo pills is probably one of the most popular ones at this point today to use. This is not free though. There is a fee to buy this app. But you can also do the same thing with the photographer's ephemeris, which is web-based, free, pay-for app itself. But you can access it online on your computer to be able to plan things out from the convenience of your home itself. But these are tools that will help you with scouting out the best vantage points then once you get out there to the site itself. Keep your head on a swivel wherever you're at, okay? Because oftentimes we're focused on what's in front of us, but the best shot might actually be above you or behind you. And so, whenever I'm hiking or walking around, I'll oftentimes, spin around and just to be able to see, did I miss something here? Especially if I'm not planning on coming back along the same path that I went out on itself. As we talked about earlier, crouch down. Low angle shots can be really, really cool that you'll find. Bring a variable ND filter with you if you have one, and to help cut down on that midday light, with or without a tripod. If you've got moving stuff and you want those long exposures, an ND filter is definitely going to help you with those, but you need the tripod with that as well. Okay. Break rules intentionally. Is like, that's what they're there for, is to be broken. So break them and have fun when you're out there. itself. Use storms to your advantage. As I mentioned, like the best skies are always before and after a storm. And I kind of lean more towards the before a storm, a little bit more, but still after a storm is completely incredible. They create those dramatic skies that you'll see, and long exposures for anything that moves. Oh, and I forgot one. Subjects. Like you see down there in that bottom photo, like use subjects for scale, within those images itself, because it really kind of gives a sense of, especially if you're shooting out like an ocean or something, or a bluff, it looks amazing, but you really can't see how big that is in the image without something to measure it against. And, people are an easy way to do that. And if you don't like the people in there, you can always use AI remove to get them out for another version of it. So,
Are you
now,
known to take Oh, sorry.
no, please.
Are you known to take pictures of the animal that pops up in your scene?
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I oftentimes look for the animals themselves. And I don't know. I'll throw out a trick as well, is that, deer are really kind of skittish animals, for the most part. But I'll see them all the time when I'm riding and whatnot. And I don't want to spook them for, they're doing their thing. And I think they're beautiful just where they're at and whatnot. And I admire them as I'm riding by. I've started to tell them as I drive by, because they'll see me before I see them. And as soon as I see them, I tell them that they're safe.
Mhm.
And I don't know, maybe it's all in my head, but as soon as I say that, they seem to relax a little bit and they stay put. And so, I'll offer that out in case it helps you, get that shot as well. But of an animal. Sonoma County, we are in such an amazing location here. There's no shortage of places to go shoot at. I thought I read at one point, Sonoma County has the most parks of any county or parish within the United States. Like,
Wow.
we are just so blessed with all this, from all of our city parks like Howarth Park, that exists, to our regional parks, like Spring Lake and Taylor Mountain and Foothills and so forth, to all of our state parks, like Armstrong, Jack London, et cetera, et cetera. But beyond that, we also have so many other crazy things that we can go shoot. We've got the ocean, we've got Bodega Head, we've got, the beaches, we've got wineries, we've got all these amazing back roads that are right at our fingertips that, you could pick every weekend out of the year to go shoot, and you would still have more locations to go shoot within Sonoma County. That's how many there are itself. Now, here's a list of some of those tools and websites that, for more information on, on landscape. Some of the ones that I really like, the Landscape Photography Magazine, and you might pick up some tips and tricks, out of some of these sites, and that's great. But what I commonly use them for is to get inspiration. I love looking at other photographers' photos and kind of taking a look to see, what did they do there? How did they do that? And I could probably do that as well. And one thing that I started to do recently is, if I find an image that I really, really love, okay, is I'll take that image, I'll throw it into ChatGPT or Claude, or pick your favorite AI program, and I will prompt it to say, give me a step-by-step edit to edit for this particular image. How could I create or mirror this particular image, the style of this image itself? And, not that I want to duplicate another photographer, but I want to understand what they did in that image, because it's oftentimes something that I feel like I'm missing, in terms of my images. And it's like 75-25. 75% of the time, it gets me along the right path. 25% of the time, it's I don't think it can actually figure it out. Like maybe the photographer did something really, really crazy and with the image, and or it might have been photoshopped, to an nth degree that might not be able to do directly in Lightroom itself. But just another way to do that. And with that, I'd like to thank you very much for your time. Plenty of places to find me. If you ever want to go out and shoot, if you ever want to just shoot the shit, I'm there to talk. And I have a strong passion for photography, and I love shooting. So anytime that I can learn from somebody else, I call it a win. So
I think we could tell that he loves shooting.
Yes, it's totally obvious.
Thank you, Rob.
We loved it. It was wonderful.
that
Thank you
was
so
great.
much.
Thank
My
you.
pleasure. My pleasure.
Thank you.
You're
Great.
welcome. If there's any other questions, feel free to.
Woo!
It's another beauty.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's amazing. That's really
Did
Yeah.
you change the color of the road and the stripes?
No, actually, I upped the yellow on there, but I kept the road the same color. This was a back road up in Marin.
Oh.
So when you get bored of Sonoma County, like
Yeah.
Marin County
Marin.
has an equal number of amazing spots to go shoot. So
Were we gonna find that image for Charisse?
yes. Let me
Just as a follow-up.
see. Just go ahead and pull up. 1 second here.
Charisse, sorry.
Oh, Charisse is fine too. My family call me Charisse, so that's good.
Okay.
Charisse or Charissa.
That's nice. My sister's name's Teresa, but I've never heard of Charissa. So that's I really like that. Mhm.
Thank you. I always say to people, think Mother Teresa with some champagne. Remember it.
Oh,
I
we'll
love
remember that.
So let me get into my library here.
Well, you know what? I'm also with you with all the hiking. I might see you because I'm always hiking and carrying all my gear with me. So I feel like I'm getting a really great workout because I'm combining the two things.
That is awesome. That is awesome. I will definitely keep an eye out for you. And knowing that you're carrying around all your gear, that's going to be one of the flags that I see.
Yeah.
It's like, okay. So, I have to remember when I took that shot. I don't know if you all do this, but I've organized all my shots by years, in like a folder by years, and then within those years, a photo shoot by dates. But I only started doing that a few years ago.
I like everybody's backgrounds. I'm gonna have to update mine from fall.
Yours is beautiful.
I might
Love it, Liz.
change mine too.
Do a
And
New
we
Zealand
can
one,
do it
huh?
right now. We can do it right now.
I don't know
Amazing.
how.
Change our background. Oh.
Well, I remember when we had to teach on Zoom. I'm a school teacher, and then at some point we couldn't have backgrounds because it slowed things down, and we saw what was going on in everybody's houses, which was interesting.
Go. I found it. Okay. So here is that image. And I was using my 24-70 lens for the shot at 30 millimeters, 1/30th of a second for my shutter. Actually, at 4.0 for my aperture, and my ISO was set at 500.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's sharp all the way. It's nice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
4.0
that's amazing.
is sharp
Wow.
all the way.
I would have thought it was F16 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a photographer that boy, man, when I first saw this, she takes group shots of people, right? And like there could be like 6 to 8 people in the shot, and they're all in the same plane, and she shoots at like 2.8. And I was like, never have I gotten a clear image at 2.8, but her trick is that they're all in the same plane because the depth of field plays plays an impact on the shots. But you're right. This was, I want to say this was maybe from 2021, 2022. So I wasn't going to smaller apertures at that time for some reason. And so there's always something, you get into these modes that you shoot at, and then you adjust over time with stuff. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
If I would have looked at this image, I would have thought it was a higher or lower aperture.
It's beautiful, though.
For sure. Yeah.
Rob,
really
have you
neat.
been to the Estero Americano?
No.
It's out at the
Oh,
coast. It's a new public lands.
Yes, that was just in the news, right? It was just
Yeah, they're trying to get a handle on the parking because everybody wanted to go there.
Yes.
If anything looks like a real parking spot, you don't park there because that's for the people that live there.
It's kind of near Pinnacle Gulch.
Oh, okay.
I remember that.
A
Yeah.
little further.
Yeah.
I was just up at Pinnacle Gulch last month, and yeah, it was there was like a little waterfall up there. That was
Oh, nice.
Oh.
it was more of a hike to get there than it was worth the waterfall, but
Yeah.
it's okay. It was the experience that counts.
April 20, we're gonna go because there's a really low tide.
Oh yeah,
Day.
Yeah. April 20.
that's pretty.
We'll
Yeah,
call
there's
you.
Salt Point up there as
Oh, I
well.
love Salt Point.
With the
The
Tofoni.
Tofoni. Oh my gosh.
Need to go explore that more. I have
Yeah.
not spent enough time up there and whatnot, but
Yeah.
that's on my list for the summer.
Bill's our Goat Rock pro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's Mr. Wave.
Oh my
Ah,
gosh.
nice.
Not much
Yeah.
landscape, mostly waves.
Man.
What's behind him?
Bill,
Oh
do you
wow,
ever
you got that?
Wave exceptional.
That's amazing.
see the bald eagles out there as well
I have at Jenner. Yeah.
at Jenner?
Yeah.
It's
Also, yeah,
at Goat Rock, or is that a little bit further down in Jenner?
further down. I haven't seen any at Gold Rock, but
Ah,
areas.
okay. All right.
Bay Flat Road to be exact. They had a nest.
Oh yeah.
Over.
Yeah, and in Marin, Kent Lake.
Okay. Huh. Excellent.
And well, it's close, Pine Mountain and so between Fairfax and the Marin Municipal Water District in Mount Tam,
Yep.
there's a section it's called the Big Empty, and I've seen Pine Mountain and stuff is up there, and I've seen bald eagles up there.
Ooh. I think there's some as well over at Lake Sonoma. But again, they never show up when I'm there. And so
Yeah,
And
someone
Riverfront too.
sighted some on Mare Island, but I haven't seen them yet.
They're on the tall ship masts.
I hope so.
I caught an
Actually, I shot
osprey
of
there
one
at
over
Mare
Spring
Island.
Lake.
Oh, that's awesome.
I gotta go. I haven't had dinner. I'll talk to you
Me
later.
too.
Rob,
Wow.
thank you so much.
Hey, my pleasure. Thank you all again.
Good
It was
job.
great seeing
Yeah,
you.
here
thank you.
too. Yeah.
Excellent.
Thank you so much, Rob.
Yeah,
That
it's
was
really,
wonderful.
really wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Touch.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
We'll talk soon.